When every review is raving about a new film or show, I often wonder if it's because its quality exceeds expectations or it's so shockingly different from the typical rinse and repeat slop that grateful audiences will simply lap it up. In this case, Peacemaker manages to do both. Let's get into it. Peacemaker picks up right after the events of the massively improved revision of the Suicide Squad, with Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, recovering from his presumed fatal injuries and forced back into government service. He gets begrudgingly pulled into a new covert mission with a mismatched team to shoot first and ask questions later. The mission to stop a mysterious alien conspiracy known as the Butterflies, who are secretly infiltrating positions of power across the globe. While fighting off bizarre enemies and violent threats, Peacemaker struggles with his outdated and righteous outlooks about the price of peace and the legacy of his abusive father that forged him. Across the season, what starts as a crude, bloody, and often ridiculous scenario becomes a journey of self discovery. Peacemaker begins questioning who he really is, what he stands for, and whether he can change. By the finale, it's much more about found family and personal redemption as it is about explosions and alien invasions. I've been around the block a few times when it comes to CW superhero style shows like The Arrow or The Flash, so I know when to expect corny acting mixed with overly intense drama, but Peacemaker surprised me. To my amazement, the typical good guy versus bad guy trope and the overly drawn out plot was tossed for multi layered subplots that kept the show engaging for the most part. The corny was swapped for genuine heartfelt moments, and the drama was developed at a reasonable pace, which is surprising for a show that is held up by gallons and gallons of fake blood and relentless dick jokes. One of the most impressive things I've found about Peacemaker is how it walks this razor thin line between juvenile, over the top humor and genuine emotional depth. You'll get a scene filled with sex jokes, ridiculous insults, or OTT violence, and then immediately pivot to a genuinely raw drama about childhood trauma, redemption, or loneliness. It usually doesn't last long until another outwelcomed joke rears its chrome head again, but it's appreciated. It shouldn't work, but James Gunn balances it so that the crude moments never completely undermine the heartfelt ones. This contrast actually makes the emotional payoffs, especially in the final episodes, hit harder because you don't expect that maturity to come from a show centered around a toilet seat wearing gun for hire. Walking this fine tightrope of balancing the show didn't stop there. Despite the show's name, the entire ensemble is what kept me watching. Peacemaker goes beyond just another R-rated superhero comedy by giving every single character a meaningful story arc. Obviously, John Cena's Peacemaker takes center stage, grappling with his ever questioned quest for peace, his white supremacist abusive father, and his own warped sense of heroism. But the supporting cast, Harcourt, Adebayo, Vigilante, aka being the standout here, and even Economos are all fleshed out with issues of duty, loyalty, and the ethical grey. By the end, you're actually caring about this ragtag crew, and that makes the final episodes land with real emotional weight. Layered beneath all these jokes and explosions are some pretty sharp political and social commentary as well. For me, this is where the show started to crack under the weight of its underlining messages. The show touches on toxic masculinity, government overreach, racism, and media manipulation, along with many, many others. With this never ending list of social commentary, it never commits to one idea, but thankfully never feels like it's lecturing you. It raises these ideas, but it doesn't hammer them down your throat. Unfortunately, its themes are more seasoning than the main dish, but it's still impressive that the show, being this wild, manages to say anything meaningful at all. Now, with any superhero media, we can't go without mentioning the action and whether or not this show lands hits or pulls its punches. The fight sequences are also messy, but are just as unhinged and chaotic as the characters themselves. They're brutally choreographed and always unpredictable. You'll go from Peacemaker smashing through enemies with brutal efficiency to Vigilante, a Deadpool wannabe gleefully blowing up heads in the middle of a completely mundane situation. The action perfectly matches the tone of the series, violent, absurd, but never boring. It's clear that James Gunn's fingerprints are all over this. The quirky filmmaking style, the oddball needle drops, and the dark, funny banter. He brings the same blend of sincerity he brought to films like Guardians of the Galaxy, but with the R-rated freedom of the Suicide Squad. That being said, sometimes Gunn's humor lingers a little too long. A joke will go on for an extra 30 seconds to a minute past the punchline, and it can feel like the momentum stalls. It's a minor flaw, but nothing if you're already on Gunn's wavelength. So, was this show a welcome surprise? The simple answer yes. Peacemaker Season 1 is a wild surprise, even if it's not the show that I expected. It's vulgar, bloody, ridiculous, and yet somehow deeply human. The balance between crude humor and heartfelt storytelling is what makes it stand out, and its fully realized ensemble cast will keep you invested from start to finish. It doesn't always stick the landing with its comedy, and its messaging sometimes plays it too safe, but it's one of the most unique superhero shows you'll find, and hopefully season 2 can build upon its successful foundations. I'd warn that this isn't the same quality as the more enthusiastic reviews have made out, but these unique stylistic choices James Gunn is making for the future of DC are clearly better than the ones that have come before. Let me know what you'd like to see in season 2, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, this doesn't happen without you.